Hello and welcome to the Tuesday, February 11th, 2020 meeting of the Finance Committee. We have, as usual, we have a couple of administrative matters to take care of before we get to the start of our budget reviews for today. So first thing I want to bring up was we have a reserve fund transfer. As you know, last week, Mr. Ritter pointed out that there was a need for a new pump and while they had it open, the well cleaning of well number 8. The select board approved the reserve fund transfer for $21,075 yesterday. If anybody wants to see the supporting documentation, it's there. But the form should have been filled out in more detail, but at least the additional information is provided in the exhibits, so to speak. So give you guys a chance to, while you guys are taking a look at that, I will just give you an update on the Nancy situation on the minutes. As I mentioned last time, I had sent her an email saying that if we needed to catch up, and so we needed to move forward. She contacted me late this afternoon and basically said that she's planning on having everything caught up within a week. Obviously, no offense to Nancy, but I'll believe it when I see it because we've been, having this issue for a while. So, but I have not responded yet because I didn't have a chance to this afternoon. But basically, what I'm going to advise her is that it's a week, or that's it. We have to move on. So, because we have to catch up. So. It appears we need some toner changed in the printer, and unless there's enough here that Tim's going through, I do think we need the backup. Because it is.
Do you want me to email it to you?
What's that? He's got.
I have that in an email. I can email it to you.
Yeah, that would be
great.
I think that would be better. This is really cut off.
Okay, I will send it over.
So if you want to have a chance, given that there's a large amount of material, we can take a vote on this at the end of the meeting. But this way, you want to send it out to everybody, and then if you want to take a look at it, you can.
You guys want to see, or you want to wait for the email?
And one thing.
The email's going to be better.
Yeah, okay. One thing. Do you guys want to see this? So you've already seen it.
I know what it's in there.
The one thing I will point out is we have on our schedule we have assessors and veterans and youth and family services. I was advised earlier today that veterans is not ready yet. They have their board meeting to discuss their budget on the the district board meeting on the 24th, which is the day before our next meeting. So they would like to move to the 25th, which I'm going to try to figure out because we have that, and we also have the request for the COA to move to the 25th. So I have to look at what we have stacked up for that day. But I will just make the point that one of the things that came out of that discussion that I had with Mr. Ritter about the veterans was, you recall last year we had a whole issue with communication there. So I asked for clarification on exactly how the district agreement is set up with respect to approval of the budget. As you all know, for Keefe Tech, there are 5-member districts. The requirement of the district agreement is that 4 of the 5 town meetings have to approve the budget for it to become official. Right? It doesn't appear that there's any such language in our district agreement, which is something we need to address, right? Because I'll give you the gist of the conversation was, I said to Jeff, if the point of the vote on the 24th is that becomes a binding vote when the 4-member representatives vote on that budget, then we obviously want to discuss the budget beforehand so that we can provide any feedback to Mr. Ritter as our district representative to take to that meeting. If, however, that's similar to Keefe Tech, where the Keefe Tech School Committee votes a budget and then it goes to the towns for approval, where we have the ability to then comment and advise on the budget at that point, then I said, then it's okay for them to vote to approve it to send to the towns if we have the ability to discuss it and make a recommendation on it following that vote. According to Mr. Ritter, and I'm not, he's got to check the agreement, but he basically says he doesn't believe there's any language that spells that out, which I said to him, well, there should be, because we need to know when the town is committed to whatever is voted, right? If that district vote commits the town, then that what happens if the town doesn't approve it at town meeting type of thing. So Mr. Ritter is going to go off and try to see what that is, but that's obviously a matter for the select board to take up with in terms of modifying or clarifying the agreement. But because of that, if it turns out that the vote on the 24th obligates us, while we can still hear from the veterans agent on the 25th. It just means that basically it'll be more of a formality because we won't have the ability to change anything, which, to me says that's kind of, shouldn't be the way it is, right? We're here to advise and consent. It shouldn't be that we just get told this is what the budget is. What's the point of us making a recommendation if we can't make a recommendation, so to speak? So anyway, that's just one little administrative issue that I uncovered today that we're going to look into. So, okay.
Sorry. You're not approving the district budget, you're approving the department budget, so.
We're approving the town.
It's the assessment portion that's
Okay,
in our budget.
just to be clear,
right?
the town approves the budget. We have to make a recommendation on whether the town should approve that budget,
Right.
okay, which is our statutory role on every budget, right? So with Keefe Tech, for example, we get an assessment.
Mm-hmm.
The town can choose to not, a town meeting to vote no on that assessment.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
2 member communities vote no, the budget is not approved and the school committee for Keefe has to go back to the drawing board.
Yes.
Okay. What I don't know and what seems to be unclear or lacking in this Veterans District Agreement is that process
Okay.
of what is required. Because ultimately, the question I asked Jeff, which again, he's got to do his research on, is
Yeah.
what happens if the town doesn't? What if we say, yeah, recommend it, and the town says no? There's got to be a procedure spelled out in that district agreement that says, 3 of the 4 member towns have to approve, or something that, because that would then clarify what our role is. Is our role to advise for town meeting, knowing that town meeting has the option of voting no if they don't have it? But if something happens and the town meeting's vote is irrelevant or is unclear as to what happens when town meeting, then we just need to clarify that in the agreement. That's the gist of it. So, okay. So with that, is there any other administrative issues that anybody wants to bring up before we proceed to our first review? Okay, if not, then feel free to, I don't know which one of you wants to present the budget, but
Not you.
one of you come up and sit in front of the mic so that the 4 viewers we have at home can hear what's going on.
You want to do it?
No, you're the chair. Yeah. Which one gets paid more?
Oh, John, go to your room. Go to your room.
So, okay, so I don't know, Mary, you've seen us before. You know the process. We'll let you present what you want to present, and then we'll save the questions till after you go through your initial, anything you want to say. So.
Okay, I think this is pretty straightforward. It's within your guideline, except for a .01. But, there's, you're frowning.
Points. No, I'm saying, where's the
The
.01?
guideline was 1% and ours is 1.010. At least it says
Next
on
to
the
the
piece of
guideline
paper.
on the left side there, Ken?
Yeah, so,
What?
Under expended
Yeah, I
fiscal
see
year.
it.
Oh, okay.
I see
So
it, but I see the request and I see the guideline amount, and they're the same.
okay.
So to me, that's 1.
Okay, it is. It
So
is.
that's why I was wondering.
Okay.
So, okay. I
It
thought it was
is.
off by $1, but I'm like, no, it's not even off by $1. So.
No.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've done the same thing that everybody else has done in terms of the salaries. Obviously, there's some steps and so forth in there for some of the positions. Nothing has changed in terms of our purchase services. We continue to do, we have such a limited budget, really, it's hard to even define. The professional services would be the contracted services that we use. Communications and office supplies. Professional development is just some of the training that happens to the staff. Both Kathy and Kelly as the professional assessors, and then I don't know if the other 2 are in line to go to any of those workshops either, I don't remember. But as I said, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Okay, then we'll start with Mr. Sparrow.
So appreciate you coming in with a guideline budget. But my question for you is about the professional development line there. So you cut out $573, and those are probably, I would assume, for things like conferences and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like, you get certifications or you have to do hours and things like that? Is cutting that budget going to be problematic for you to maintain certifications or anything, or?
I know I'm up next, and, I've got it scheduled, so
Okay.
I think I should be okay. We had a lot of new staff and new board members who were required to take some educational information.
Hence the
course.
spike in 2018, is that what
Yeah.
that is?
Right.
So I think we're getting to a more normalized.
Okay. So you don't need to go yearly, it sounds like you said you're up, is that what you're saying, or?
We average about 45 credits a year. I
Okay.
think, something like that.
Okay. Just my concern is that, I appreciate you coming to 1%, but I don't want you to cut out something that could be problematic down the road because you lose a conference and now suddenly you're at 32 hours instead of 45.
I don't think we'd do that,
Okay, good,
not for the certifications.
good.
No.
So,
The only thing would impact that, if Mary doesn't get reelected, we have to send somebody to the school.
Right.
okay. So get reelected.
We take no political stances
Yeah.
whatsoever on this
I'm
board.
telling her to, I'm not taking a stance on it, I'm just
No,
telling
I'm just
you.
saying that,
That's
Is
it.
she running again? Maybe she's chosen not to.
that's right.
So that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Ms. Zimmer?
This is more of a procedural question, and I thought about it later when we were discussing the town clerk's salary and how it has to be a separate warrant article. Is the assessor's salary won't be in the omnibus budget, it's gonna be a separate?
It will be part of a separate article.
Okay.
but it-
The stipends, you mean?
The
Yes.
stipends, right.
Yes.
For the elected officials,
Yes, that's
Yes.
what, that's new.
Okay,
Here's so you know the amount of money, but it won't be in the omnibus.
okay, that was the
It'll be
only,
a separate article.
okay, that was the only question I had. Not necessarily about the budget, but more procedural. Okay, thank you for
Okay.
keeping within budget.
Mr. Maxwell?
No questions, thank you.
Just how many people are in the department? I just wasn't
You know,
sure.
as staff,
Hmm.
there's obviously Kathy is the principal assessor, and then there's an assistant to her, that would be Kelly.
Yep.
Those are the two full-time,
Yep.
and then we have two, Charlene's hours are what, 30?
No,
She's
no, two part-time.
two part-time?
19 and a half each.
Okay, so
Okay.
two different people doing that.
Okay. And then just, I noticed that the supplies tend to be consistent year over year. Looking back, it historically has been about the same. Is there any way to create efficiencies, like centralizing the process of ordering supplies? Are they common supplies, or are they unique to sort of the department?
We take most of our supplies out of the central area in here. We order through Amazon, whatever's the least expensive. We do whatever we can. In the past, we've copied on used paper and printed on the backside until.
So it's somewhat centralized through town hall?
Absolutely.
Okay. Fantastic, thank you, that's it.
Mr. Murphy?
So in light of that, the centralized, what's the office supplies? Are you getting allocated, charged out something that's hidden there?
We have paper.
Well, what's getting charged there? I'm looking at Sharon behind you. So is it something direct or is it just some sort of allocation? She's got $1,000 or $432 expended through December.
Yeah.
What constitutes that 432?
I don't know what to say, maybe.
Is that a chargeback for shared services, or is that
Right.
specific
No,
items?
this is specifically what
Right.
Kathy's ordered for her
Okay.
department.
But it's also coming, I mean, it's coming out of, so.
Some of it can come from what she's talking about over here
Right.
is the supply room that Donna stocks. And if you take anything out of there, there's a pad, you tell her what you're taking, and she will charge you every single month for whatever she takes. So she
Okay.
kind of stocks some stuff, and if you take it, you get charged for it, and that's what you pay out of your budget. And then there's other stuff you just buy on your own. But every department, has access to that, and Donna will charge you monthly for whatever you've used out of.
Okay.
The only thing we
Squad.
order that we don't take out of central is usually printing cartridges. And we go wherever Chris Mayo tells us to go.
And can you explain the revenues and expenses of a butters list revolving account?
Well, it's kind of a crazy thing. It's cyclical. It's based on whatever gets filed down with the planning. Planning sends people up to us to request a butters list. We charge people $50 per listing. And with that, we provide mailing labels and the list, and it goes back downstairs. So what we charge from them, the big things that we charge are the labels, occasionally a cartridge,
Cartridge of what?
a printer cartridge.
Oh,
And we also pay for our digitization of our plans for the mapping, which is usually the bigger expense. It's about $2,500 a year.
okay.
Anything else, Mr. Murray?
Nope, that is it.
Okay, I had a couple of questions. So professional services, you cut that by $800 or so. What is in that line? That's,
Primarily in that line are all of our fixed accounts, so, but we do have a little bit of money for data collection.
well, isn't that the line that covers what used to be CAMA is now whatever the replacement for CAMA is?
Right, so the breakout of that is, we still have CAMA, and we still have CAMA for one more year, I think.
Yeah, that covers all our outside consulting and also a rough estimate of legal for ATV cases. So
Okay.
we usually have a little bit extra over there, so losing that amount is not going to impact.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Right.
Okay.
Although I will say one thing, as you know, we're in the reval, we're in the process of changing over, so all the changeover expenses are in that budget, we're confident with that. The one thing that has come up recently with Kathy and the DOR is that they are now telling each community, including Holliston, that we have to value, that we, as in the past, they used to give us a number for utilities. They're now saying we have to value that. We have 2 utility accounts. The rough estimate from a consultant that Kathy has talked to is $2,000 cost per account. So that we will have to do for the reval for next year. We would like to get started on that now. And I think the only way to do it is arguably a transfer request, because there was certainly nothing we anticipated a year ago that we were going to have to do. We'd rather get it done now rather than waiting until July 1 and have to rush to get it done in the fall as part of our full valuation. And we're also asking people to fight that, because it's awfully crazy for a town like Holliston to have to spend $4,000 arguably a year.
Every year.
Because you've got to value it every year. And we're looking at approaches to kind of do a percentage per, like whatever utility may have 1,000 accounts in Holliston. If we figure that out and agree upon a value for this year, our hope going into the future would say, okay, now you get 1,100 accounts. The 1,000 accounts was, I don't know, $500,000. It goes up proportionately.
Right.
Because we don't think it's appropriate to have the town stuck with $4,000 bill on an annual basis.
Do you have what was the rationale that DOR gave for that change?
There was a court case in 2019 that came through. And historically, we've been valuing it by net book. And every year, the utilities, we have 2, NSTAR Gas and NSTAR Electric, they come back to us. Their total value, including they have land, is about $31 million. The feeling with the appellate tax board and the attorneys who are making this pressure on us to value this is that we could get up to a 40% increase in value. But, we're assessors and we say, okay, how much money are we going to be spending in court on that? So a lot of communities are saying, okay, 41 million, we'll take half of it and put it into the overlay. And we're talking value, so it's not exactly that for revenue. But, we're hoping that, we can fight it. They're getting, the DOR, Bureau of Local Assessment, is getting a lot of pressure from the attorneys to push this through. It would be a lot of growth for us for maybe 1 year, a couple of years. But once again, how do we take care of it? How do we maintain it? The Mass Assessors Association is trying to find out, can we devise a spreadsheet that will have an itemized listing of all this equipment that we can just adjust annually. It's pretty heavy, you know what I mean? It's detail heavy and it's complicated. But if they can come up with a spreadsheet, maybe we can adjust annually. And
To some extent, like we do with personal property.
Well, that's what I was gonna say,
We
like
adjust
for-
the depreciation schedule in the list of
So
equipment.
is this land or is this property, personal
This
property?
is utility property, like
So it's the poles or?
poles, underground conduits,
Okay.
wires.
This has been the never-ending
Right.
tax case. This has been going on at least a decade. They've been talking about
Well, we
taxes
settled
for
all the
these things.
telecom stuff that, the
Yeah.
Department of Revenue valued, that
Mhm.
we get stuck with. But this is something, the net book decision was years old, And now it's, this is highly technical stuff and, it's way beyond my bailiwick. But, I'm not gonna be here forever, but I can learn it. I learned to do the cables, I learned to do solar. It's an expectation we can work on.
So none of that is either in our existing budget nor in the proposed
Is
one.
there a possibility of grouping with other towns? Like, hey, having one guy go around and do assessment together, as opposed to us picking up the total price?
Individual per town, though. It's what the equipment is per town.
In your town?
In each.
No, but what he's thinking is kind of volume purchase, right? If you get the same
Yeah.
contractor and consultant and say, okay, you can do, we work
Less than
with Holliston,
Hopkinton.
Hopkinton, the towns around us so that they can get the business, they might give you a better price for doing 5 towns.
Economy of scale, we
Right,
don't know.
exactly.
We don't know.
Just
This
kind
is-
of
this
came
just-
down with just making
Right.
you aware of it.
Yeah, okay.
Just
So,
get our
so
best.
obviously keep us posted if that's gonna be an expense that's coming down the pipe.
Will it bring in revenue for the town? I mean, once you get
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
'Cause it's-
inventory.
It sounds like it's not
It's
part
the
of
new
the
growth piece.
2.5, right? It's outside of it because of its property?
Well, 2.5 doesn't pertain to value, it
Right.
pertains to taxes and levies.
Right.
I mean, it would
It's
increase
not
the
in-
levy,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, by greater than 2.5%, but because of the value, I think.
Yeah.
you know.
The other question I had was, so housing, regular residential housing has a requirement to be revalued, every 3 years or something like that?
Well, we're on a 5-year
So
schedule,
if
they
I don't-
changed it now.
Okay, and this was a reval year we just had, which is why everybody's upset.
They
right?
changed it for us, because
Okay.
we were going through the conversion.
Mm-hmm.
They allowed us to go from FY20 recertification to FY21, so we're in recertification right now. I got people on the ground doing personal property. I will have the commercial industrial people coming in shortly.
So, I'm just trying to understand, the FY20, the values changed a lot.
That's
For-
because
And
That was
usually
an
that,
in-house, that was an in-house
Right.
determination, not outside consultants.
okay, so because of the conversion, we were able to sort of not make a major change in values for fiscal 19 and for FY 19 and 18. The value stayed the same.
I see.
So by FY 20, our percentages were like down to 90% as opposed to being 95%.
I see. So
So-
this wasn't a reval year,
No.
this was just an adjustment for.
annual-
It was
okay.
an annual in-house.
No, I get it, but
redetermination of
that's,
values.
that's the, as I said, when people look and see these big jumps in value, my first thought was, oh, it must have been a reval year where they redid the curves, right? So, I think that's important to make sure you guys are communicating that, because as I'm sure you fielded a bunch of calls from people saying, why did my value change 15% this year, that kind of thing.
There's a lot of concern too about the value of land and whether or not it has really gone up as much
Mhm.
as is reflected in the assessments.
Yeah.
But it has, so.
So, interesting. So that means there's going to be a reval next year in
Yeah.
FY21, okay. Okay, maybe that'll make people even happier. The,
Buckle up.
Yes.
But you're going to have a tax refund by then, right?
Yes, well, there will be, the excluded debt will be gone by then. At this point,
Okay.
that payment's been made, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's it. The one thing I did want to ask, though, is how much of that professional services line is the new software?
$8,000.
Okay. So, and that's the ongoing maintenance costs. I know we had some initial costs. And the other thing I was going to ask
There's
was.
an ongoing licensing fee.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that the 8,000, the ongoing fee, right, okay. So the other thing I wanted to ask about was the whole GIS thing, right? Are we leveraging that? And I know this goes beyond just the assessor's office,
Assessors.
right? But, we've had the conversation with the building inspector, for example, about this, right? And one of the comments I made to him last year when he was talking about the software was, hey, we have this GIS system we're paying for. All this is supposed to be integrated in there. So we don't want individual departments saying, oh, our GIS thing and our GIS, we've got you as the people that have the GIS database. Everything should be in one system. So is that,
So this is the thing, okay, so GIS, we have a guy who's digitizing it, and we take his information and we ship it to People GIS, and we create a paper map from the digitization, and then we create an electronic geographical information system. If something's wrong with, like I bring up a map and for some reason the information's not coming through, I have to kind of try and track down where the error is. And sometimes it's difficult to get people to admit it. One of the problems we did have with people was that we had a young man who was doing a lot of updating of the master address file, but he left, and we kept sending him emails and adjusting, and he was gone, you know? So we found out about that, so there is a hole that I have to go back, and all of the splits that I've had, I think from FY16 going forward, and there's not a lot of them, but it takes time and deliberation to hunt them down and track them down, and I've been trying to do that.
Well, I'm thinking less of the assessing side, but let me give you an example, right? We have the water pipe study that we did years ago, right? That mapped out where all the pipes are in town, right? That's the kind of thing that should be in GIS, right? We have all the building
Right.
stuff, that should be in GIS. Like, we should be using it to be the resource it is, and I know that's not falling on you guys.
Right, but it should be
But
there.
as the owners of the primary database,
Yes.
right? Are we making sure that, you know, you guys are reaching out to the building inspector saying, hey, when you get this GIS thing, this goes into the master database so that you can pull up the, you know, the property cards, the location of the pipes, the location, you know, any permits, all that should be one central thing.
That's what geographical information is.
Exactly,
right.
that's what I'm saying.
Um,
I'm just wondering if that's happening, that's all.
Well, it's there, whatever has been given to me. Part of my concern has always been, you know, that pipe plan. I don't know where it is. Nobody's ever given it to me.
Mhm.
I need to create a layer. I need to give it to people to create a layer. And I've asked several times, but I don't know what happens to that stuff.
Okay.
So
Okay.
maybe, I don't know. maybe
Okay,
you
well,
guys-
that's why I said, I know it's not your
Remember what you
responsibility.
need to do is your next department head meeting,
Yeah.
Yeah, just
put that
ask.
as a topic of discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah, same with the building office. I mean, it does make sense to put it all together.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I
that was the whole goal when we talked about
Yeah.
GIS years ago,
Right.
was, right, to get all this stuff
Absolutely.
into
I agree.
one system,
I
so.
agree. It'd be
So
very
the,
powerful, but.
Okay, that's all I had. Anybody have any follow-up questions? Okay,
Okey-dokey.
you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask what your recommendation would be? Should we go for a transfer, or should we put it in the budget for next year?
For the $4,000?
Yeah.
I think you should look and see what other towns are doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Before you-
if you do the investigation and figure out that that's what's gonna be necessary, I think we would entertain it as a transfer. If it can wait till May 1,
Mhm.
that would be ideal, because then we can
Hold
do
them
it,
off as long as I can.
we can do it, we have other
We can do it at the
means at
town
our
meeting
disposal
as
to
a-
adjust it.
As a warrant, as opposed to a transfer, reserve
Yeah,
fund transfer.
Right,
It'll be
we have our quote-unquote special powers we get in May and June that allow us to
Yep.
make minor adjustments like this. without-
And then we should know. We should
All
have
right,
it by now.
thank you.
Okay,
Thanks a lot.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and since we have no Veterans Budget, Veterans Agent here until the 25th, we will go to Jackie, who's been sitting calmly and coolly in the back there waiting for her. See, the perfect picture of stability that you expect from a Youth and Family Services Director.
Jackie, what's your last name?
Weiner, W-I-N-E-R. No,
You sent it to us, so it should be.
I did send it, yes.
So now I gotta find your budget. Oh, there it is, okay.
And she sent us an email this afternoon.
Yeah, with some backup.
Yes,
Oh, that's perfect. She's giving us hard copies.
Yay.
Yes.
And all I can say is, you should be glad Dan is not here, because a 23% increase would, he'd be choking on his coffee right now. So, yeah.
It's not as simple as the last budget
Yes.
review, but we'll talk about it.
So, oh, more stuff.
I'm sorry.
Keep up the program there.
Thought we were Greens.
Thinking the green people would not be happy with that.
So do we want to start with just a brief overview of staffing and?
You can start any way you'd like. As I said, the floor is yours
Updates
until,
and stuff like that. Okay, so just for people at home who are confused about what Youth and Family Services is, what we're presenting on, what we do, we are a local mental health agency in the community. I have a full-time clinician, I myself am full-time, and then we have a part-time social worker who is with the Simmons School of Social Work program getting her master's. So I have her 3 days a week. We provide primarily office-based counseling, but we also go into the schools. We go into people's homes. We work with different town departments such as the police department, the fire department, the Board of Health, oddly enough, the assessor's office sometimes.
People stressed about their taxes? Is that-
We hear a lot about those things. So we also offer court diversion programs through the Middlesex DA's office. We offer parent support groups. We participate in forums and educational seminars that are happening in town. So we are all over. We're community-based social workers. And in addition to the clinic and what we do after school with kids, we're also participating in the Holliston Drug and Alcohol Awareness Coalition. And so tonight I'm going to present on a little bit of our initiatives around primary prevention and funding going towards primary prevention. But I think what we'll start with, I guess, is just the salary lines and some of the discrepancies that are there. Sorry, did I pass out the budget?
Yep, that was the first thing you did.
Yes.
Okay, good. Let me just find it.
What's your other?
I have one.
Okay, just gonna say it might
Okay. So, my salary it's pretty standard, to be expected, given the changes in department head salaries. The admin assistance line, last year went from 30 hours to 40 hours. It was also inaccurately documented at town meeting. And Sharon, please jump in
No,
if
no,
I'm missing
with you.
something. So the reason why you're seeing such a substantial increase is because, one, it was documented wrong. Two, the grade changed from a grade 400 to a grade 500. So that position has been sort of, has a history here. Margaret went without somebody in that position for an extremely long time, primarily due to that salary being the way it was. And we're not going to go back, but that was sort of the argument last year was, this is what we're doing in the community and this is what our needs are. And so we were able to move that position to a full-time position as well as move that grade. And that was something that was done sort of above me. It wasn't something that I had.
It was anybody, excuse me, anybody who was required to have a master's degree went from a grade 400 to a grade 500. So there was the assistant librarian was moved to grade 500 because she's required to have a master's degree as well as Jackie's assistant.
Okay, so let me ask one
Maybe
question
one or two,
since
I'm
we're
not
on
sure.
since we're on this topic.
Sure.
So what is the amount for fiscal 20?
So fiscal 20, what is budgeted is wrong. is the
That's why
problem.
I'm asking
Right.
what, I know that's short just
What
based
should
on the
it be?
run rate I'm seeing,
Yeah,
okay? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. So what is the actual number for 20?
what it should be.
Yes.
Have to figure that out.
We will have a deficit, and we will need a reserve fund transfer in order to adequately appropriate for that position.
Except that, well, we're gonna have to adjust that in May, more than likely. That doesn't qualify as a reserve fund transfer. Saying that we screwed up is not unanticipated, unexpected.
But she's not going to have money for a line item transfer.
Well, no, but I'm
Well,
saying we
not
have to
in
go to
her
town
budget.
meeting to
No.
appropriate money for it. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Oh.
We have to take care of it in May. So as part of the budget, we will have the budget adjustment line, warrant article, correct?
Current year transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is, as I said, okay, if you don't have it to hand, that's fine.
I
I'm
don't
just,
have it
the
handy.
reason the
Figure
only
it
reason
out.
I'm saying this is because I'm trying to determine how far off we were last year, because I was looking at my notes and I wrote, this would cost approximately $13,000 a year to go from 30 to 40 hours, according to their calculation. So just based on the run rate I'm seeing, right, we appropriated 41, which anticipated that 13, and now it looks like it's way above that, like another 11, which would mean that the actual increase ended up being about 24K. So I'm just trying to see how far off we were. we can keep going, but I'm just saying that's why I would like to find out,
Keep going.
It should be about 11, but we'll figure it out.
So, Ken, you said what? Just so I can get it in
Okay.
the notes. What was happening? What did we approve last year?
we approved, well, you have the appropriated fiscal 20, right?
Yeah,
over
but we
there.
made up ours, so that's what I wanted.
Right. What the note I had said, they were looking to increase from 30 to 40, which is what you said. And I wrote, this would cost approximately $13,000 a year according to their calculation.
I see.
So we now know that's wrong.
Yep.
I'm trying to see how wrong were we? Were we off by 1,000? Were we off by, double that?
Yep.
Right? Because I'd like to know, just for future reference, how much, trust I put in figures like that. So, okay, so anyway, so we'll dig into that later, but go ahead, keep going.
Everything else is remaining the same with the exception of the professional services line. So the professional services line, we're asking for a $10,000 one-time increase to that budget so we can apply for the Drug-Free Communities grant.
It costs money to apply for the grant?
So the grant itself, the FOA, which I sent out, is about 120 pages. What we're looking for is to hire a grant writer because it's a federal grant through SAMHSA, and the anticipated tasks of a grant writer are so laborious, if you will. So it requires a skilled writer, somebody with the experience of writing federal grants. DFC grant applications is a complex process. As I said, the FOA is about 120 pages. The writer needs to have deep familiarity with the document and all of the components required. This includes an understanding of multiple federal online portals that have to be navigated. Administrative accounts for the town need to be set up on appropriate federal websites week before grant deadlines to ensure timely submission. In addition, proposal narrative is limited to 10 pages, so the writer has to be clear and concise. The writer also has to have a keen eye and attention for detail. So federal grant forms and application addendums are a significant part of the application. More than 80% of the total number of pages in the applications, which is usually between 80 and 100 pages long, and applications will be screened out, and the proposal narrative won't even be read if they're missing or incomplete forms. So you really have to have knowledge of these federal grants and the process for it. And you have had to have a proven track record of getting it for other towns. And so that's why a grant writer is sort of essential in this process. I've actually tried to pull it up myself and write it, and you can't even get through one page without just like screaming at the wall. Like, it's just a maddening process. You have to have strong analytical skills. You have to know the Holliston data. You have to be able to collect the data. If need be, you have to be able to paint a compelling and comprehensive picture of substance use issues in Holliston, which we talked about last night. I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to those things and what we know is going on in Holliston. We have to include key stakeholder interviews with the community. So this isn't about just youth and family services making changes in Holliston. This is about a community effort. And we have, I think what, strikes me or not surprises me, but is hopeful in this process is that we have multiple levels of commitment from our chiefs in town, officers, Chief Stone and Chief Cassidy, to the superintendent of schools, to the Board of Health, to the Select Board. We have a lot of champions in this town who believe that we need to look at primary prevention in Holliston and look at some of the data that we're seeing in terms of youth substance use. And if we can get to youth, we can get to adults as well. At least that's the hope. And so kind of took us off a segue there, but going back to sort of the anticipated tasks of a grant writer, they have to be able to be collaborative and have strong communication skills, because ultimately that's what we're going to be needing to fill in that role once we get DFC funding, is the mover and the shaker in the community who can say, okay, the schools are using this, are in need of this, and this person can provide this, and so what are the resources that we already have access to, and so what can we then expand on? So it's about coordinating money and less so spending money. It's about what are we already doing and how do we really leverage change from a public health perspective. I can take you through a little bit of the PowerPoint that I did last night. I know there's a lot of information sort of thrown at you. Actually, I'm going to pull it up on my computer.
Okay, just as a warning, you don't need to go through everything.
I'm not going to, but I think just to reiterate the goals of the DFC.
I told her not to bring the PowerPoint
Yes.
presentation, not to do the presentation.
Yes. The goals of the DFC are to establish and strengthen collaboration among the communities, right? And the second is to reduce youth substance use. And the theory behind the DFC program is that a small amount of federal funding combined with a local match of resources and volunteer support can reduce youth drug use in communities.
So any grant that we get would require matching funding from the town?
So that can include like money contributions, and that can include in-kind contributions. In-kind contributions are things like office space, office supplies, volunteer support, and things like that. And we have plenty of people who have used the DFC program and the matching and can lend their expertise in that way. And so by working and mobilizing these community leaders, we will be able to respond to the drug and alcohol problems that are unique to Holliston. The focus of the DFC grant is on creating the environmental changes because community level change ultimately leads to the reduction in substance use among youth and over time among adults.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, we've got the slides.
Okay.
I'm saying save yourself the trouble, because I'm looking at them, I'm saying, okay, we can all read this, you don't need to go through it.
Okay, I just
It's
didn't know
not-
how much
Not trying to
people
cut you
knew.
off, but
Yeah,
I'm saying we
no,
want to
no,
focus
that's
on the
helpful. I
numbers,
just
so
wanted to
we
make
can
sure
read this.
people-
I was looking ahead while you were talking, and it's like
Good.
we've got all the
Okay.
data on the plan.
Okay.
So you want the $10,000 for the consultant to
That's
get
correct.
the grant, and the grant, in case you guys haven't looked at it, I looked at it while she was talking, it's up to $125K per year.
Right.
For 5 years, renewable twice,
Annually,
so
right.
theoretically, for 10 years, you can get $125,000 a year for 10 years.
So it would be a 5-year grant?
Yes,
Or-
with the ability to.
Okay.
You can renew it once for another 5 years.
Right.
So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's on the fact sheet here on the back. Look on the back of the fact
Do
sheet.
you have to have demonstrated reduction?
So my understanding is that you pick a substance and then you work to show a demonstrated reduction in that substance, yeah.
Yeah, slide 14 is the data.
What's that?
Slide 14.
That's
shows
why I
that.
said she doesn't need to go through all, it's right there, we can all look at
Yeah.
it. So, yeah. Okay, so you want the 10,000 for the consultant.
I had a question on
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
consultant, Ken. It sounded like it was more than just the grant writing, that it was actually after as well. How long does that $10,000 sort of get you, or how much does it get you?
That will help us write for the grant, which is due in February.
Okay.
So they'll be working from July to
Oh,
February.
next year.
And,
It's
but
like,
even
wait.
afterwards, so we will even have access to the grant writer after the grant is submitted. Once we get the actual, you've received these funds, they actually work with us to implement some other things that go along with the DFC once you actually get it.
Okay.
Is that included in the $10,000?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
And
That was sort
your
of my question.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, then you can continue. We got the consultant piece, so
The remainder of that is for my consultant, so for the program, so the $4,500 is something that we use. So the consultant this year is actually instrumental. We've been really working on sort of defining our services in the community, defining our mission. We are seeing youth and families, and some of them have various levels of needs, and so we always want to, clinicians always want to be able to get supervision from the program director, but then we also want to always be able to have one more oversight in addition to that. So for cases that need we need additional feedback on, for training purposes, for developing better systems in terms of our paperwork and how we document with clients, it's been beneficial to have a consultant that we can use as part of our program. And so the consultant meets with us every other week as a team, and we present cases. And then we also talk about programmatic things that we're seeing and how clinicians can be providing better care for their clients. So it's actually incredibly important that we have that sort of person, and in addition to me, for safety reasons with clients. So.
okay, I have a question about that.
Mhm.
last year, the increase in the consultant, there's a significant increase in the consultant, for the money added to that line for the consultant that you're
Right.
referring to now. At the time, one of the rationales for that, this is why I keep my notes, right, says due to the newness of the staff, because we have a lot of college grads.
Right.
So would we expect that what you're describing is more of an ongoing need for the consultant?
Right.
But I would think that some of that, you wouldn't require the same as the level of funding as the staff gains experience.
Not necessarily. I think years and experience, I think are something that happens over time in the field, especially as a clinician, as a young clinician. I think that, yes, hypothetically speaking, your clinicians would improve year by year, right? And the same
Right,
level
and I'm not
of
saying it
training
goes
wouldn't be
away.
needed.
I'm just saying that if you say, okay, hey, we've got new staff, it's like training. You sit there and say, okay, we have a couple of years where we have to have higher levels of supervision
Right.
because we have trainees. Well, okay,
Right.
well, eventually those trainees become trained.
Right.
And then you may need some ongoing supervision, but you need less.
Right.
So my question is are we going to see, after a couple of years, that 4,500 or 4,000, whatever was added last year,
Yeah.
that some of that comes back in terms of, okay, now it's steady state, we don't need half that amount because now everybody's got greater expertise. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, may not impact 20, but I'm
Right.
just wondering if that's.
Well, so
something
every
expect to
year we
see.
take on an intern. So that is 24 to 28 hours of time that we receive from master's in social work students. And so they're always coming in, they're always being retrained in our program. And that's the route we go so that we don't end up having to take on an additional salary. So right now we see about 106 families. That's a significant amount between 3 people and a part-time staff person. And so we're using the budget to the best of our ability to reduce those types of costs. And so the $4,500 for the consultant is actually a real small portion of something that we're trying to manage as a program so that we don't end up having to
Okay.
have
So-
burdens to the town in terms of
So
costs.
the short answer is no, you don't expect that to ever go down?
No.
And that's the answer. So, okay, continue. That's just one thing we were talking about. I just wanted to make sure.
That's all I have. The rest, the communications line, professional development line is remaining the same.
Okay, then I guess we'll be ready. We'll open up the questions for Mr. Murphy. We'll start your end.
Sure. Can you explain to me what you think you're going to need for staffing to deal with this grant, if you get it?
So it's actually, the DFC grant works in tandem with the coalition. The coalition is not paid staffers, but there's 15 members to the coalition currently. And there's also a chair, a community chair. And so between me, the community chair, the volunteers, and different town departments holding some of that, we're all able to manage the grant. The grant also allows us to hire a certified prevention specialist.
Okay.
And so that certified prevention specialist is actually the person who would coordinate the DFC grant, and that would sit under Youth and Family Services.
So there's going to be additional, will that person be doing the reporting and all the different reports? Because federal grants require lots of.
Yes, yeah, they would be the ones sort of overseeing all of those.
So the expectation is the salary will pay for this?
You won't, so the grant pays for.
We'll pay for the salary.
Right, and then what we do, what the grant writer, what the person does who ends up being in that position, works the in-kind match so that there's low fiscal responsibilities on the town, if that makes sense. So the grant requires a match.
Yeah.
And
But-
our job is to work the in-kind match so that there's not a large.
There's no dollar for
right.
dollar match. That's what
Right.
she's trying to say.
No, I understand.
I know you got that. I'm just saying.
I'm just
clarifying-
trying to figure-
clarifying for the audience at home.
No, who cares? Nobody's watching us.
That's not true. A lot of people do. I
Sorry.
get comments all the time.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, Ms. Nessessian?
Can you talk a little bit about the coalition?
Yeah.
You said they're all volunteers. Are they
Right.
people from the different departments in town, or are they are they town
So
people
they
that
represent
don't?
12 sectors of the community, because what we actually use as the coalition is something called the Strategic Prevention Framework. And that's a SAMHSA evidence-based practice. And so the SAMHSA evidence-based, the strategic plan is to pull in 12 sectors of the community: youth, schools, businesses, religious organizations. So we have the Deacon at St. Mary's, we have the Director of Student Services at Holliston High, Meg Camiri, we have the Director of Nursing, Lynn Bowler, we have Chief Cassidy, who participates in every monthly meeting we have, Lieutenant Lorraine, who participates in every monthly meeting we have. We have mental health providers, we have community members, parents. So we really, our goal is to reach the remaining 12 sectors that are involved in the strategic prevention framework.
And people just volunteer, is that how they get integrated into the coalition, or is it a voting, like you have to vote them on, or?
For the steering committee?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
voted on.
Okay. But generally speaking, you were just the coalition
Yeah, members are
itself.
free, anybody in the community is free to join.
Okay.
We meet monthly work, they're actually meeting tonight. Shout out to HDAC.
And in terms of the grant writer, do you already have someone picked out that you've already
We
sourced,
have
or-
colleagues in this, but I believe it would have to would it go out to bid if it was a $10,000? So it would have to be
Small,
something that
and
we
you
would.
Yeah.
I'll leave it to the purchasing agent. you
Yes.
know. Yeah, I didn't think so. For 10,000, it's a small thing, you just don't even,
Yeah.
you just have to show why you picked them.
Yeah, we would interview a few of them.
I think Tina had some insight about that.
But Tina's sitting right behind her,
Yeah.
so I can't see her raising her hand. Okay, yes, Tina.
The comments from, so Jackie's been working very closely with Katie Sugarman, who is the drug community-free coordinator in
Natick.
Yeah, in Natick, and in Natick, I believe they did put out an RFP. I think those were.
For a grant writer?
comments. Yes, if I'm reading my notes
Yes.
from that correctly, but it would be how Holliston decides to do it, but you asked a question about whether or not there'd be a bidding process, and some communities, I believe, do go through that bidding process.
And then just in terms of the number of resources that you have, what do other comparable towns have? So are you light on resources? Are we heavy on resources?
We've always been light. I can
And,
tell you that.
How does the
Yeah.
number of families that we're dealing with here in Holliston compare to other comparable towns? Do you see, is it higher, is it lower, is it the same?
I think that's a hard question to answer. To your first question, I think each department is set up a little bit differently in terms of staffing. So sometimes you see the addition of an administrative assistant, sometimes you see the addition of 2 part-time peoples. I actually had put together a document last year regarding other town departments and sort of what they look like.
Oh, that's right, okay.
And I'm happy to
Back-
share that
No,
too.
no, I can go back and get it. I can grab all my
And your
stuff.
second question was, sorry, say that again, it was about.
Just, well, the first question was the resources comparable, and then just the number of cases. So I think you said 106
Yes.
to date. Just how is that comparing to other towns?
I don't know how it's comparing to other towns in terms of their caseloads, but I do know that historically we've provided individual therapy. And I think what I'm trying to do is really get really specific on our service delivery model, because our mission is to assess the needs of the community, and so we can't maintain wait lists, which means that we can't see everybody forever. And so we're trying to get better at being more brief, solution focused, so that we can get in, we can assess what's going on, we can provide some really good recommendations and feedback, and then we can help bridge that work to the community, to whatever's available in the community. But as far as what other departments and other towns are doing in terms of their caseloads, I really think it varies just depending on how they're set up and how they're structured. I do meet regularly with the Metro West department heads. That was something that I actually formed. And we go to each town each month and we talk about these things, and I can definitely bring it back just to see sort of what people's caseloads are looking like and things like that. Yeah, so.
Okay. Tina?
Just a quick comment here. So there's a feature on DLS where you can, the Division of Local Services, where you can compare. So I'm assuming youth and family services fall under human services as
Yeah.
a category of spending for municipality. And when we look at some of the best comps for a town like Holliston, we are second out of 9. So if we compare to 8 other towns, we're second in spending of the 9 communities in terms of health and human services as a group.
Second lowest or second highest?
Second lowest.
Thanks for that.
Okay, anything else?
No, I was just trying to figure out if we have open needs or if there is a way to restructure, so.
Okay,
So
Mr. Maxwell?
Yeah, I'm done.
This 10,000 is a one-time fee and then we're done? Next year, the 10,000 comes back?
So there is the possibility, there's always the possibility that we will go through this whole process and we won't get it. What we do get, though, is a real detailed outline of what was missing, as well as what we would need to do in order to get there. Also, because it's such a substantial grant, all the information we're pulling together for that grant can be used in so many other various ways. So we could take that narrative component of the grant and we could apply for this other grant or that other grant. And so even if we don't end up getting this DFC grant, there's so many good things that can come from the reporting back on what we learn in terms of the findings. It's such a detailed process that there's a benefit to going through it, even if there is that chance that that doesn't happen.
If we get the grant, you mentioned we could hire. Is that the plan? We would hire, or do you not know right now?
Would we hire for, we would take the DFC money and we would hire for a certified prevention specialist, similar to Katie Sugarman, and they would oversee the grant process and they would fall under Youth and Family Services.
Would the grant cover benefits or no?
Yes,
Okay.
it would.
So then how's the plan, what's the plan to match the grant?
So in-kind is really where the avenue we would be going, and that can be so many. You can do pencils, pens, papers, physical space, office tables, volunteers, community speakers.
What about your time?
My time, volunteers' times, chiefs' times. I could make a case for the clothing I'm wearing to be an in-kind. I mean, you could make a case for just about anything to be an in-kind match. So I'm not actually worried about
Are we
getting
ready?
to.
Are we able to track all that minutia?
They would be tracking it, not me. I mean, if the chiefs, if other people are volunteering their time, she's gonna have some sort of log per se or whatever
Right.
for her time and the chief's time and whatever, which is gonna substantiate the fact that,
Right.
we had to come up with X amount of dollars. Yeah.
We don't get any other federal grants, right?
Any other?
Well, I'm
programs?
thinking,
I mean, townwide?
yeah, I'm just wondering now,
No,
I
we
don't know what the
definitely do.
rules are regarding.
Well, you can't double dip.
The schools
Yeah.
are federal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get
So we definitely get
audited.
other federal
So this will
grants.
include under the uniform guidance. I'm guessing, I'm not sure because of how it is municipalities, but just an audit for the
Oh, I
for
mean,
the
if
expenditures.
this grant is sitting on the town's book, it's going to get audited along with everything else, yes. Yeah.
Mr. Maxwell?
Other than, being successful in getting the grant, how would we define success of this program?
How would we define success?
Yeah.
I
How would you measure effectiveness like 5 years down the road?
I think effectiveness right now would look like all of these department heads working collaboratively together to benefit the department and what each department's mission looks like. That would be my primary goal in establishing this, and instead of having all these silos that are happening, right? So, we have the schools and their wellness curriculums and education, and a measure of that would be looking at evidence-based practices that are happening in schools that are focused on primary prevention through the U-Haul of like the wellness curriculum, and being able to work collaboratively with the police department to make sure their overdose procedures and preventions, they're able to do what they need to do as officers to respond to substance use issues in the community. So we hope to see lower arrests. We'd hope to see reduced costs in terms of medical care with responding to these issues. Investing in long-term prevention has long-term savings. So there's research out there to show that about $10 to $18 per day can be invested back into the town when you have these programs working strategically, collaboratively in terms of coordinating services. And so a goal would be that we're increasing the effectiveness, we're aligning, and we're coordinating the use of existing resources in the community. And we're identifying new opportunities to support the resilience of the community.
Can I interject for a second? One fundamental question. Would you
Happy
expect to see a
to.
reduction in use rates in town?
Yes.
Okay.
Use, USE,
Yes.
for youth and family
Drug-
services?
No, drug use
Oh,
rates.
Joe,
No.
Right.
okay.
There's, research to show that when you have good prevention programs happening, youth delay access to substances. They delay the use of substances.
It's your slide 12.
Mr. Cronin, you had a comment?
Yeah, Jackie, you may want to add on some information that's in your packet, because we talked about this last night. I had the same question. I understand that the baseline of a lot of the data that Jackie's going to be working with came from a wellness survey that was conducted in 2018.
Yes.
So there's your baseline, and she shows that, I think, in the PowerPoint, yes?
Yes, so there's a slide in there that shows
It's in here.
the reduction of substance use with the DFC grant. And it's a significant decline across substances, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, between middle school and high school students. Are you referring to the last?
I was talking about slide 12, because that was the Metro West Adolescent Survey.
Right. So the Metro West Adolescent Behavioral Health Survey gives us every year a trajectory of what youth are using and how often they're using. And the questions are so specific. And so that helps us figure out, where we really need, how to align our goals in terms of addressing these issues.
You also show the town of Holliston's fire and police calls for various types of overdoses and usages.
Yep, 13.
Right.
That was an also baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, good, Mr. Maxwell.
I am so sorry. One more. So as Ms. Nersessian was asking about staffing needs, I was just kind of curious. So it looks like, I think you highlighted it in here, FY 2017 to 2018, there was like 89, and this year we're at 106.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying you're thinking about redefining your service model. So how many contact hours do you have right now? And is that something that you're looking to maintain while serving more referral? Like, how does that look as you redefine your service model?
So we do about 28 hours of clinical direct service with clients a week.
Okay.
And then there's other things that go along with it, like maintaining client charts, collateral contacts, sessions, things that happen outside of the clinical work. Sorry, I'm now blanking on your question. You had asked me, I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't know.
Contact hours.
Contact hours, like, so how do you define your service model in terms of changing it? Is it by looking at the number of referrals you serve?
We looked at the number of referrals. We really spent a lot of time just on our mission and really what our role is in the community.
So would you be looking to reduce the number of contact hours, or?
We want to stay
Maintain that
within our
level.
28 hours
Okay.
of direct service, but we don't want to maintain a wait list.
Do you have a wait list currently?
Well, we had about 15 referrals in January, which was actually really, really high for us. And so right now we have a small wait list, but we anticipate being able to get those families off the wait list probably in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So it's the only time this year we run into that problem.
Is that 28 hours per person or 28 hours for your department,
So it's 28 hours per clinician.
per clinician?
Yeah. So it ends up being about an hour and a half per client in total. And then for interns, they're a little bit less efficient with their time, so it ends up being actually closer to 2 hours per client with with what we have, so.
Interns, completely understand.
Yes, but we're doing all of this by hand, by the way. So the recording, me auditing, and me sort of looking at our data is done by an Excel spreadsheet, which takes many, many hours to put together every month. So at some point, I won't say next year or the year after, but we do need to look into some type of an electronic record-keeping system where things are streamlined and I can sort of oversee in a much more efficient way, I guess.
Is that the biggest pain point you have right now?
Paper, yes, and the
Okay.
charts and the auditing and the data reports that I have to do, yeah. They're important, I do them. I actually started them. They weren't being done before. But it's something that needs to continue. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for your patience with all my questions.
No,
I appreciate it.
I know that this is different, so.
Well, I know there's 7 of us, and it's a little.
Yes. Wait. Mr. Session, you have a follow-up?
I did, just, you had talked about having the certified prevention specialist come out of the grant. So if the grant is 125, and I did a quick Google search, so maybe completely off, but they said the average salary was $16.38 an hour, which is $32,700. And then Tim asked about the benefits. What's the benefit run rate on that?
So what was the? what's the total salary?
32.7 at 40-hour week.
32.7? I mean, generally, you know, I'd assume like 20 to 30K per full-time
top.
employee, because of, the insurance is independent of the hours, right, once they get to full-time. And then, yeah, so I'd say 20 to 30K, so you're talking about 50.
So I just wanted to, so that's been factored in to the total, because that
Right.
then drives you down to about 75,000 only per year to use for the 5 years,
Yes.
because of the salary component that has to come out of it off the top,
Right.
so.
It actually is a full-time person and a part-time person.
Oh, so it's two?
Yes, it's two
So
people.
So it's more than that?
Yes, and I
Okay.
can get you all that information. I don't actually know. I have to check in with Katie in terms of staffing and what that looks like. And if you have any specific questions around that after, please let me know, because I don't want to inaccurately speak to that. And
I wouldn't mind just knowing the breakdown on how much of it is like people's salary, and then how much do you have to actually go towards the
Yeah, I know that's a good
town
question. Yeah.
for whatever it might be, programs and other
Mhm,
things. So
sure.
just whenever you get a chance.
Yes.
That was it.
Absolutely. yeah.
Ms. Zimmer?
I actually don't have questions because I've been sitting in on meetings.
Okay, good. Mr. Sparrow?
Well, first I want to say thank you for putting together all of this to do this kind of thing for the community, and we appreciate you doing these kinds of things to help Holliston, and so thank you very much for doing that.
Thanks, Ben.
My question is just about the grant in general. Is just that do you have any plans, or would you put together any plans about like cancellation of grants? Like I'm concerned, like, is it's a large number, with staffing and things like that, and it would be 10 years, which is great. But, is there sort of any contingency of, like, for example, hypothetically, we got it for 5 years and then we didn't get it for after that? Do we, put together a plan to sort of handle how that works, so it's not just like a giant,
Yes.
gap that we have to fill, or
Yes.
just like let people go and lose this program for the community?
Yeah, no, there are situations where I've heard of situations where there's some people who have lost that funding after the 5 years. They reapply again and they're able to get it. It's rare when that happens, but that does happen. And I can get you some more information on how it's handled when that does happen.
Yeah, because my
and what
other
that looks
concern
like.
is it seems like sometimes with some of the things in the federal government that can be in flux, some programs get canceled or they get underfunded and things like that, and I just want to make sure
Depending
that
on the
we're not.
administration, yes.
Yeah, and so I just want to, just sort of think about that. I don't want to, but we have to
No, it's
kind of make sure that we, especially given the size of the grant,
Absolutely.
to make sure that we can continue.
Yes, I can definitely answer your question.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, I did have one.
Well, you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
I did have one comment, and it was something that was discussed last night at the selectmen's meeting, and it was the host community money that comes in. And I know that there was some discussion, when the money was first available, and we had to hold it separately, and now it comes into the general fund. But I know there was a discussion, Mr. Cronin discussed it, and I feel that, I know that it does come into the general fund, but I feel that this is something that we should consider that money should be used for.
I think it was emphasized last night, to your point, Michelle, that this is the exact use of this fund. This is how this fund should be used.
Well, just to be clear, there
And I
is
know we're
no
not dis-
fund.
I
This
know,
is-
I know.
This is what I keep saying to
I know,
people.
I know that it's
okay?
in the general fund,
It is-
but.
it is-
It's in the general fund.
There is no
You
fund.
can't touch it.
The money goes into the general fund, and it all becomes, as the late Mr. Gordon Johnson used to say, money is fungible once it gets into the fund.
Right, but.
So I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying I don't want to create this perception that there's, marijuana money is being put into a pot. It's not, by law,
No
it goes
pun
into
in-
the same
no
pot
pun
as your property
intended.
taxes.
Right,
So,
right, but.
I mean,
okay.
conversation that I've thrown out to many people, which, again, this is money that's just flows through, goes into free cash.
With
and we haven't
everything
gotten
else.
Our hands on it.
However,
If
the
the
town
way
could,
you can get your hands on it is if the town decided to set up a separate stabilization account.
Right, but I mean,
A
when.
special purpose stabilization
right.
account, so when the money comes in, it gets deposited there, and then the town can decide
Yes.
what to be used for, but then, I mean, this is just my opinion, if we can stash it, so to speak,
Right, but
and
when
then
we're.
we
Okay,
can use
wait.
it
Stop right there.
to fund programs, exactly, for
Okay.
this, for the
Point has
police, for
been
the
made.
fire,
Yeah.
for the school, for the whatever, but yes,
Yes.
in
Yes.
my opinion, I would love it to be in a special stabilization fund, because I've been arguing with DOR that they make me put it in the general fund, and I'm thinking, no, like kept waiting for them to change their mind that it could be in a
Okay.
revolving account, so
Point-
we wouldn't lose it.
Point taken, Sharon. Let's
Yes.
move on.
Okay.
And that's why I said I wasn't meaning to cut you off. I mean, she made her point. No, my only point was that we talk about it as if there's a fund. There is no fund.
Right.
So,
There's
okay.
general fund.
the one thing I would say is, I do appreciate everything you do for the town. I mean, I've always, been a liaison for Youth and Family Services for a very long time. And just so you know, I wasn't being rude by being on my phone. I was actually looking up stuff on the budget to try to figure out how we fund something like this. So I was trying to do some work while we were sitting here. Yeah, I don't have anything. We had conversed a little briefly ahead of time, and I had heard from Michelle all the details ahead of time. So nobody else has anything else. We can, yes.
I just want to give a shout out to Jackie's department. So Jackie talked about 28 hours, contact hours with patient care. So for patient care or client care, that's a productivity rate is a term we use in healthcare. A productivity rate of 70%. So when you look at nursing, physicians, physical therapists, occupational therapists, social workers, 70% is right where it should be in terms of productivity. And my shout out for Jackie is that she's reaching that with an intern, an unpaid intern that she, as a clinical instructor, manages. It's not in her job description. So through her extra work of being an instructor, a supervisor for this intern, she's providing additional contact hours to the town of Holliston, no charge for the town of Holliston. So I think that's a tremendous job that Jackie's taken on, again, outside of the duties of Youth and Family Services Director, to supervise this full-time intern providing 28 hours, 70% productivity for the benefit of the Holliston residents. So,
Okay.
just wanted to-
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we're done then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks for all
Line
this.
So-
nine, the current year budget is like $15,000 underfunded.
Okay, so that line should be 56. Is that what you're telling me?
Yep.
Can you send us the staffing proposal for the grant? That's
Sure,
Yeah,
yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, now, do we want to do the select board tonight? You guys ready to talk about a budget?
Talk about a budget?
Yeah. We don't have to tonight if you don't want to, but I'm just,
No, it wasn't on my agenda.
Okay.
On your agenda, Jeff?
I have it.
so if you guys, we can put that, it's not on our agenda, but it was on our agenda last week. That's why I said if you wanted to talk about it, but if you want to take some more time,
I've got
Just-
a fairly
just-
long list, so why don't we put that off? Is that okay, Jeff?
Okay.
Yep.
That's fine, but do me the favor of letting me know when you're ready so I can put it on an agenda, because now,
Next Tuesday.
well, we're not next Tuesday, it'll be the 25th, which we have apparently everybody in town coming next, so, okay. You have other stuff?
Why?
You wanna-
Veterans.
Oh.
veterans, Council on Aging wants to move to that day, they want to move to that day, so.
But we can move other people around.
Yes, well, that's why I said I have to look at it
I mean,
to
veterans
see.
can move to the following
Yeah,
week.
DPW 's
that's why I said I have
They
to
could
go
swap
look
with
at
COA.
what we have
COA.
available, so.
DPW's
COA.
I'm happy to stay until 11 too. Get them all in.
Like tonight.
Okay,
Good evening.
go ahead, Mr. Cronin, you can give us an update from the select board.
Few items. We had a couple of your colleagues join us last night for most of our meeting, so for some, it's kind of redundant, but for others, just an FYI. First of all, the facility manager's second interview was conducted last night with one of the last candidates. I recused. I have a relationship, so we'll be voting on that disposition next Tuesday, hopefully.
So there are,
one way or
what, two
another.
candidates?
There are two candidates left in the pool. The original, as you know, backed out. So there'll be an evaluation of those two candidates and hopefully a vote sometime next Tuesday.
Now, is the evaluation just being done by the town administrator and the two select board members that have not recused themselves, or like, who's doing the evaluation, I guess?
One of the candidates will probably be between the three of us, and
Okay.
then the other candidate will be between Ms. Hine and Mr. Aronian.
Okay,
And then they'll determine whether or not we go forward or repost. So
Okay.
that's the gist. We had the library in last night. They asked to speak to us because they reached sort of a crossroads in their planning of their library study. They said that they wanted some guidance from us on how to source information to estimate costs for repairing or bringing up to speed the TD Bank building, which is currently for sale. They expect their consultant to have their report prepared, I think, by the beginning of April. Not a date, but beginning of April was the date she gave us. And furthermore, they had a survey done. Leslie made reference to the survey, but she didn't have it aggregated in a way that she could share with us. So we didn't really have a lot to like put our hands on and discuss and get into. So it's more informational. She was trying to source us for some direction, and we encouraged her to go out and try to find some local contractors who could help her estimate the cost of some of the repairs they were talking about, and so forth.
with that in mind, Mr. Ritter, have you heard back from the agent? Because I gave him, you remember when we did the walkthrough of that building, I gave him a list of questions to follow up on? Okay, because you may not know this, Mr. Cronin, but I was at the walkthrough with
Yeah.
the agent, and there were, it's relevant to what you just said, because there were lots of questions that I had about, the structure of the building and wanting more details on, things like the HVAC system. There's a part where we had no access to the roof, the interior of the roof to see, and there was a question as to whether there even was access, things like that. So my feedback to your board would be, make sure you get those answers to the questions. I gave him a lot of detailed questions that will be relevant to you to making a decision on that building. So, and it will also factor into her construction cost estimate. That's particularly on the roof. There's a space in that building that we could not find an access to that would create a very difficult situation, because it's, as you know, from the outside, it's got a peaked roof. There's a ceiling that was put in, because it used to be a church, I guess, years ago.
That's right.
Right, so,
Grandmother's married there.
but when they put the ceiling in, the question is, where's the access to that now created attic space?
Yeah, got
And
it.
we couldn't find it, and because of that, you have a whole issue of, can you inspect the condition of the roof, and what happens if there's an issue up there? It could
Right.
have been dripping for all these years, and nobody
We'll be
knows
happy
it.
to pass that along, but it's a library exercise. So-
Correct, but
so if and when we get
yes,
an answer.
and Leslie, to that point, Leslie and the trustees were there when I was asking the question, so they should be aware, they should be seeking that information as well.
But who took it as a to-do to follow up with the Realtor?
Well, there wasn't a specific assignment. I told the Realtor I would like the answers to these questions. So, my presumption is the Realtor has been dealing with Jeff, so my assumption was that he would, not that you'd follow up, but that he would give the answers to you, because he had been the point of contact. But I can follow up. I have his address too. I can email him and say, did you answer these questions? So, but I think it's essential to that. That's an essential part of what they need to do to get this done. So continue.
Speaking of your questions, I did ask the trustees and the library director if the current library should be blown up.
Is that how you put it?
Yes.
That's how we put it. It was not my word, actually. It was borrowing it from another meeting. And they all concurred absolutely not.
I know.
I asked all
know.
three if they thought the building was a money pit. None of them thought it was. So just wanted to pass that along to your chair.
Yet, I will
Yet.
just just make one comment about that. Yet, how much did the repair work cost last year? How much did the roof cost the year before that? How much did the HVAC system cost before that? Which is now, by the way, being asked for more money this coming year.
The town has
So,
put
while-
$330,000 into the building over the last 10 years.
Right, but the insurance, I guarantee you, the value of the claim, what was the value of the claim to the insurance company?
Gotta be at least 500,000.
Okay,
Mhm.
right? If you and I both know as experienced financial people that an insurance company doesn't pay a claim of $500,000 and then say your rates are gonna stay unchanged. So whether the insurance company paid for it or not, the town will pay that $500,000 back.
And just incidentally, I observed in your CIP that you folks passed, or I think you passed along a couple of days ago, I don't see the library in there. There's some anecdotal pieces in there, but action that we're talking about is not in the plan.
Correct,
So just FYI.
right.
So there's that. Ding, ding. I met with Mary before he came in here. She and I have been working on a model for debt. I think you're familiar with the project. We're getting there. She gave me a nice binder with lots of data. Still some work to do before it's
Gotta be
ready for
official,
prime
it's a
time.
binder.
I know. I was very impressed with her. But there's one item that I want to put into your queue, and Mr. Ritter as well. Jeff, if you could make note. She's thinking that we probably want to put in the spring warrant an article for the treatment plant debt. She was kind of pulsing out how the project is kind of rolling out. She thinks they might be near construction phase by next January.
Why do we need an article for that, given that we already authorized, we have an
It'd be
article
an
already?
override.
No,
Debt override.
Oh, the actual debt override, okay.
Right,
okay.
and then we're going to need one for the ballot too. So
Mhm.
we'll let the town clerk know that.
So am I to presume then that the select board has decided that the project will be funded via a debt override as opposed to a rate change?
You can assume that today, but we haven't taken a vote on that.
Okay.
I just heard this
That's
now.
why, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not arguing one way or the other, I'm just wondering if that was.
Yep.
Okay.
So Jeff, if you could follow up with her on that, especially with respect to Ken's last question. Okay, Town clerk, the town clerk has sent us correspondence requesting consideration of a wage correction. As you probably know, she was originally in the wage correction for FY20, and then she's not. So she submitted us a letter articulating the need for an FY21 correction with some consideration of lost wages from FY20. We did not vote on it last night because I wanted to come and talk to you guys. I think that's how you guys want to see it, right?
Yes, that is. how I see it.
So as I understand it, her wage is somewhere in her budget at around 77 and some change. You can confirm.
I can confirm that, just give me a minute. Just keep going, you can keep going, I'll look it up.
And, or excuse me, that would have been her corrected wage. Excuse me, 77 and some change. Does that sound about right, Ben?
That sounds right to me.
And as a result of not receiving that correction in FY20, there's some thought that we would place that lost wage into the FY21 number, if you follow.
Yes, except that there's, obviously Mr. Alfred would have his own opinion on this.
It's very quiet in here tonight.
The one thing I would say, though, is that the only thing while I totally agree that it really isn't fair to the town clerk because of the logistics of that,
Mhm.
the only concern I have is that you're then creating a permanent, it's kind of like the consultant for the Youth and Family Services.
Why don't you say this is the wage retroactive to
Yeah, break
the
it out
beginning of
into
this year and
pieces.
just show it in the warrant?
Yeah, you could do that. That's what I'm saying. I say I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to sit there and say, okay, we bump her
Yeah.
up in '21 to a
But make it
higher than expected
retroactive
amount
to the beginning of
make up the
this
lost
year.
wages so that she's then at that higher level, unless she were to say, okay, then we reduce it down to the level it's supposed to be the
Yeah.
year after.
Then we'd have to have two town meeting articles
that's-
to do that,
that's
which
the
we're planning to do
issue.
with one.
Yeah.
So that's why I said to Mr. Murphy's point there, maybe that's what we do, is have an article that makes it retroactive to last September.
So in other words, her base button, she's already paid before you, I take it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I think she's one of the
Yes.
first
Yep.
ones.
Yeah. That's why I was
Um,
trying to find it, because I know it's in here. So
Yeah, so, okay, so I don't know if you folks saw her salary to what it should be for FY21. In fact, actually, it's not, actually, you know what, Sharon, it's not in her budget, is it? It should have been taken out. Because she'll be part of that article, Michelle, that we talked about earlier.
Right.
It is,
It
but I
is.
think I put it in her budget because we needed to show something.
Yeah,
You
she's,
did.
it's a 12% increase in her budget, so she's definitely put something in there.
Yeah.
In her, 12% increase in her salary.
Do you see what the number is?
77,
Yep,
917.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
the number. So that would have been her corrected number for 20. So
That-
you're,
So that 77, 917 is what she, that has,
That's her annualized salary, that's what I put
okay.
in the 21.
But that
budget.
is not
That is-
boosted by retroactive.
That
Correct.
is not
Okay,
correcting,
okay.
correct.
Okay,
Right.
it's good to know.
and I believe the amount that was lost in FY '20 was 64 and some change, $6,400?
Something like that, yeah.
Is it 64.58? Does that sound about right, Sharon?
I'm looking.
That's the number in my head.
Scary if you actually do
No,
that.
6798 is what she should have gotten in 20.
6798?
That's the amount.
6798
Thank
should
you.
have gotten in 20. And then what's in her budget for 21 was her salary annualized like we did for everybody else.
So we'd like to come to some terms with Ms. Greendale, Kent, so
Okay.
you'll have to let us know. This is for FY '21, so I guess we could wait, but just let us know what you guys are thinking
Yeah.
on the number.
Could
We'd
you
like to
share
get that.
the details around the analysis that you did for everyone last year that
The,
generated your conclusion? So what, like, I don't know if you did a comparison on like longevity and other towns and
We did.
whatever sort of basis that you utilized to come to the conclusions you did would be super helpful, just to understand the process you went through.
you mean for every department head, right?
For
Ideally,
all
yeah.
of them.
Did you not receive that?
No,
No.
Not the comparisons of where you get the different towns.
We just got the
this-
numbers.
Yeah.
You'll get it.
but
The
no,
spreadsheet.
no
I'm
sort
sorry,
of
I thought
background.
you guys had that, but I'll see to it. Yeah, no problem. You got it, right, Ken?
No. I have some preliminary stuff, but I never got the final stuff. I have some stuff that goes back to April when we talked, but I never got
Okay,
anything.
all right.
I just got the final numbers after that. I'll go look, maybe I do have it, but I don't recall. I just,
No,
as I
that's all
said,
right.
we had talked and then,
That was when it was working group, that's fine. I'll definitely, get it to,
Or you can do the whole group,
Yeah.
the FinCom.
yeah, you can send it to everybody, yeah. FinCom email, you can do that.
you got it. Sorry, Sue, I thought you had it. Last night, Mr. Ritter informed the public, as he had informed us earlier last week, that he will be resigning, July 12th, this year. Our board has met to discuss sort of the next steps. You and I had a conversation, so for the benefit of the rest of your board, we are interested in a professional search firm to assist us with the recruitment of qualified individuals for the position. We intend to look at the job description as defined by the Acts of 1994, Chapter 94, and also discuss with the search firm the relevant going rate for this position in the Metro West comparable town areas. I have reason to think that wage will probably have to go up for recruitment purposes. We will share that information with you once the search firm kind of divulges to us where they think we should be targeting the recruitment once it gets going. This will all be known probably in the next couple of months, I would think.
Go ahead.
Do we have funding for the search firm, or?
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to add that
I was gonna say, that's something we have to take up.
we would discuss that with you once we bring them in. I think we're looking at somewhere around just south of $10,000, roughly speaking. Good?
Okay, yep.
Any questions on that? CFO update, it's drafted. There's a couple of pieces I got to tweak, but I sent it to town council last Thursday, excuse me. I wanted him to make sure that what we were trying to pipe into the CFO duties in no way collided with the legal responsibilities, primarily of the town administrator, because there's a little bit of overlap there, as well as anybody else. I emailed him today to ask him when I was coming to see you, and he said he's been tending to some elderly in-laws, and he would try to get me something by Thursday. So my hope is that once I hear from him, I'll finalize the draft. I'm going to get it to Vin, and then once he puts his stamp on it, get it out to people as a working document just to discuss it.
Yes, Mr. Farrell.
So just you don't have to get into too much detail here, but just my only question about the CFO position is that, is there, is it going to encompass like all town finances? Like, for example, boards or department heads that do not fall under your purview?
For example?
School, Board of Health, like, but other boards that
Right.
could be, that could be out of your, like, are they gonna help facilitate those, particular, or are they gonna help them too, or is it, you're gonna be mostly for the stuff that's under your?
The position's a policy position, so to the extent that they facilitate information, yes, they'll be doing that to the benefit of the other elected boards and so forth. I envision this individual to be overseeing the town treasurer, the town accountant, and advising and consulting with the town assessor, the finance team, if you will.
Mhm.
They're aggregating the information, and they're using it for the benefit of you folks and other financial stakeholders in our town and outside our town. If that involves them talking or sourcing information, say, for example, with the school department, they're sourcing information. They have no oversight
Right.
of that board.
Okay.
Would they be looking at trends, information relative to the school budget that may be useful to your board, to the school committee? Absolutely, it's a resource.
Okay.
I envision that, yeah. Does that get to your answer, or?
That gets, and you
Yeah.
don't have to get too specific, because we're not
No,
looking at the job description.
It's a good
but
question. I
just
met
was
with
kinda
Ann
curious.
Louise last week, and she had the same question, and clearly the role cannot and would not reach into and manage the financial resources of the schools. That's what the business manager does.
Well, not only that, but their statutory.
That's right, there's a firewall there.
responsibilities,
So we expect, though, that, and I know the volume of information that in any given year you're looking at from the school budget, for example, they're going to help generate maybe tools or information that might be useful for you to analyze in any given year. The schools is just an example, but the other elected boards as well. Right? But their direct reports would be the two people I mentioned, and a dotted line, if you will, to the principal assessor.
And they report to the town administrator.
I thought, may I jump into this real quick?
Go ahead.
I thought you were going to ask a question that I'll preempt right now and just say, we were planning this position at a time, when before Mr. Ritter announced his resignation. We still intend to pursue the position, but we recognize that there's a lot of financial pieces in place, potential new town administrator coming in. Just speaking for myself, our board hasn't talked about this yet, so just as me. I would love to finalize the job description, get it ready, possibly get a vote from my board, bring it to you, see if you folks want to give a vote on it, that'd be great. And then pause. Talk about the position maybe after the town administrator is hired on board, and maybe evaluate at a town meeting in the fall or something down the road to see, do the skills and what we're looking for complement? Does the new town administrator want to be part of this process? So forth. So it may be a timing issue, that's all I'm saying. But I do want to see it through. I think it's a very valuable tool, and we're just going to have to wait and see how it plays out on the financial side. Okay, fair enough?
Well, and a cost issue for this year.
No question.
There's
Yes.
a lot
No,
of.
And I'm well aware of
Yes.
that. We-
I talked to Mr. Cron about that already. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's-
There's no way around that. Just wanted to clean up an item. I was not at a meeting a week ago, but Mr. Ritter told me on the ride in that he has answered, I think, to your board's liking, questions related to the solid waste contract, and specifically whether any surrounding towns had the service provided to businesses. Did you all get that information? Do you have any unanswered questions on the solid
Well,
waste
the answer-
program?
I believe the answer was
No.
none of the towns.
That's
provided.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But relative to the solid waste issue, I didn't know if there were any other unanswered questions that you wanted addressed.
I don't think we've had it brought to
Right,
us
I was
yet
gonna say, we
formally,
haven't
so.
gotten the details, other than Tina giving us an update a few weeks ago and saying that the district or whatever, and that, yes, there has been, we haven't heard any of the details other than what was presented, so at some point when you guys have a proposal, if you want to move forward with
Well,
this.
briefly, you're going to look at the solid waste contract and see a savings. There's a bubble in there of,
Mhm.
I think, about $80,000. And what we imagined was taking up to $20,000 and setting it aside for use within the business district for eligible small businesses to participate in the same program. That's all. And that's the whole nut right there. It would be a set-aside amount of cash to afford those businesses.
Okay, well, since we don't have it, if you like, we can save this, I wouldn't want to discuss tonight because it's not on our agenda,
I understand,
but I'm
yep.
saying that I think there is more follow-up that we definitely would have with
Okay,
regards
sure.
to that proposal.
All right,
So-
great.
We talked last night about meeting on the tri-board. We circled a date of February 29th, Ken. Excuse me, that's a Saturday,
29th.
leap day. We're targeting midday, and perhaps having the town moderator join us to help corral the cats of the three boards. If that works for you, just let us know. It was
Definitely
just
doesn't work for me, that I can tell you right now.
Does not.
Does not work for me.
It doesn't work for me either, but.
All right.
Yeah. I
Would
have-
you,
I have two individual kid activities that day, both of which are many miles from here.
Yeah, and
So-
I get it. It's a busy
Yeah.
time of year. Perhaps maybe I ask if you and your committee might come up with a date
Yeah.
or two
Okay.
and let
that's
us know what's best.
fine. Is the preference for a weekend, or is that,
I think it makes sense because they're talking a couple of hours, to get through what three boards need to talk about. I don't think it's going to be anywhere around.
who's bringing the guitar? No, just kidding.
Bring the what?
The guitar.
Oh.
So-
Oh, boy, yeah.
I think
Right.
if I understand some of the email content, it's strategic thinking.
Mhm.
It's discussing this model,
Mhm.
the effect it has on the town's finances, and setting expectations broadly about what we all can
Yeah.
think
yeah.
and do downstream.
So I would say, we'll take this up next week, so think about what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
We'll talk about, actually, we're not meeting next week, that's the
And-
problem.
And
Vacation
it
week.
it sounded like too, just to add to that, that we were thinking about getting the town moderator to help facilitate the.
We're going to ask him. Yeah, and I would think Bill would assist if he's available as well, yeah.
Okay, well, what I would suggest, since we're not meeting next week, because it's vacation week, email me dates at work. Obviously, calendar things and calendar discussions are permissible under the open meeting law, so you can send everybody the dates at work, and then I'll try to find the intersection of all those dates. And,
You were trying for March, April?
well, he's February 29th, but obviously if that doesn't work, it'd probably
Yeah.
be early
Yeah,
March.
we're into March. So.
Yeah. So,
When
I
you're
get it.
back from
I
Europe.
know it's busy. It's
Yeah.
the busiest time of year for everybody, but we were trying to accommodate the interest of the school
yeah,
committee.
no, I understand
So,
that. And I can reach out to them as well, so.
Okay, my last item, sorry to keep you
Okay.
guys late. So we heard today from Standard & Poor's on our bond rating request. Unfortunately, the town will be staying at AAA+. Ms. Bousquet and the finance team are a little disappointed, but yet they did receive some feedback on our request. Anecdotally, I've not read anything, so forgive me, I'm not reading this verbatim from an S&P report, but one of the items that I heard on feedback was they think we need to change some of the way we perform our accounting and the movement of monies into and out of stabilization accounts. There was some concern that we were putting too much money, for example, directly into OPEB. They wanted us to be putting it into a stabilization account and moving the monies around. The orchestration of that, I'm sure, is detailed in the report.
Yep, I'd
We'll
like
try
see
to get
that.
it to you as soon as
Yep.
as possible.
We only have the draft at this point, we don't have the final.
Yeah, I'd like to see
I
that too.
do have to say,
So-
I'm disappointed that we couldn't have Ken there, because I think that you would have had a way to explain why and our thinking behind the OPEB, because it's been a significant discussion among our board. So candidly, I'm disappointed in the rating, where we ended up, and that we had offered to have Ken there because he's intricately knowledgeable about
Mhm.
everything around the town finances, and I think it would have been, personally, I believe it would have been an asset.
Well, as I said, let's see what the report
Yeah.
says and see what we
Mhm.
go
Yeah,
from there.
That's right.
definitely.
But definitely, when we get it, can you make sure we get a copy of it?
No question.
We have a chance to respond to the report.
Right.
Don't ask me, I don't know what the standard process is, no pun
It's come
intended.
and gone.
What?
We got a draft this morning, they give you 2 hours to review it.
Oh, 2 hours, okay.
Mary, as far as I know, made some adjustments, it's gone back, we don't have the final report.
Okay.
So I wanted to report that information.
Okay,
as
thank you.
sort of evolving, but
Mhm.
that was all. Any questions for me?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Cronin? Okay, good, now, so you're all set?
I am. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank
Now,
you.
we do have the reserve fund transfer that we started out the meeting with. Has everybody had a chance to dig into it?
If you didn't get it, just let me know. Resend it. Should be in the box.
Thanks for sending that, Ben.
Thank you, John.
So
Thanks, John.
if everybody has concluded they're ready to vote on the reserve fund transfer, then Ms. Zemer, you can.
Oh, you looked at it, you sent it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I sent it,
Make a motion, we approve reserve fund transfer
for the water department in the amount of $21,075 to budget account well cleaning organization number 61450, object number 53012.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, proceed to vote. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, zero abstentions. Okay, that's it on the administrative front. Does anybody have anything else?
So we have to, did we vote?
What?
What, for what?
I don't remember saying aye.
Yes, you just said aye.
You didn't say no, so you
Yes.
said aye.
That's right. So so I assume
I
you're an
heard
aye,
you
just to
loud and
confirm
clear,
that?
Michelle.
right? Okay, so the one thing I did want to remind everybody, including our audience at home, is that because next week is school vacation week, we do not have a scheduled meeting next Tuesday, so you enjoy your week off. The 25th, I will look at all the requests and try to resort out the last few weeks to try to see what we got there. So expect an update to the agenda at some point over the next week or so when I sit down and do that.
And let me know when you do that, so I make sure you have
Yeah.
your budgets, please.
Yeah, you'll be on the email.
And our plan for next meeting, sorry, but is to finalize and vote on the open minutes that were sent, and then the document that you resent out with the
Correct.
edits,
Correct.
around
Yes. So be prepared to vote on.
preparing for
Right, and you
finance.
won't be in this room because this room will be
That's
early
right.
voting.
And for those at home, we won't be on TV on our next meeting because, in fact, maybe even our next two, because
think you
the
said
weekend
two.
after is March 3rd, right? Is
Yeah,
primary
that's
day.
actually
Primary.
day.
And I
So-
probably won't be here on
So-
March 3rd.
The
And I
25th
won't
will
be
be
either.
here, I don't know where we are. I think we're downstairs at the table again, but we might be, I've checked, maybe we got a 1-4.
Should make sure we have a quorum.
We definitely won't be here on the on the 25th because of early voting. On the 3rd, we will, we may be
So-
here, but we won't be starting
So
until 8.
wait,
I won't be here, I'll be down in Florida. I have a seminar.
Well, if you're not going to be here on the 3rd, let me know ASAP.
I'll be working at the primary and I won't be able to be here until the ballots are reconciled. It
So-
takes forever during the
Yeah.
primary. 'cause
No,
you have
that's
to-
fine, but so we'll find out from Dan.
And you,
I'll be here.
oh, you,
Okay. Anybody have
So-
anything else they want to bring up?
Tim, are you going to be in France, Belgium?
I'm looking, because
February-
one of the
March 3rd.
Tuesdays in March, I have
I'm
to
here.
be in New York.
Well, just let me know, put it that way, because if we're not, let me know if you're not going to be here, because then if we don't have a quorum, then it's going to impact how I reschedule everything.
Okay.
So, okay. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up before we close for this evening? If not, then I'll entertain the motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second?
Okay, it's not subject to debate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, zero abstentions. That motion carries. That concludes the Tuesday, February 11th meeting of the Finance Committee. Thank you for joining us tonight. As you just heard, we will not be meeting next week. Our next meeting will be February 25th, but we will not be on TV because we won't be in this room because of early voting. So if you want to come see us and you're devoted fans of the Finance Committee, you'll have to come see us in person. But for tonight, we're done, so thank you and good night.